All right, and Ian Trottier, Discussions of Truth, since 2017 officially, January, coming up on 5 years now, just a couple months away from breaking that 5-year barrier, and had a book deal now for a couple of years. I'm not sure if it's still on pre-order, but Freedom Reserve, No More Lies, has a contract with Trine Day Publishing out of the state of Oregon. Now, what's interesting is if you go to my website, Ian Trottier, you'll find on the research tab, you'll find a compilation of a number of articles that I have put together through my research over the years. And I start with Stanford Hoover Fellow Anthony Sutton. Now, this is what's interesting, is that in 1975, I believe it was, a few years after delivering a speech in Miami Beach, exposing the corruption behind Wall Street, essentially being forced by the shareholders of the Federal Reserve Bank that finances the United States government. And if this is news to you folks, then I urge you to study why it is that the U.S. government is bound by strings that are controlling it. This is all coming to the surface through the past few years of Donald Trump talking about deep state fake news. Whether his presidency was scripted or not, it does seem apparent that an election was stolen. And the Rockefeller Foundation has had its hands in voting fraud. Not necessarily saying that the Rockefeller Foundation was behind the Joe Biden presidency, but it is a complicated issue here. The economic strings, definitely worthwhile understanding, because then you understand why Joe Biden is subservient and who he's subservient to, and then thus understanding how you can prepare to, well, not to sound cliche, but make America great again if there is enough of you out there. I think there are well over 100 million Americans that enjoy and love their country. So Anthony Sutton, this is what's interesting, is that he walked away from Stanford because they began censoring him as he was divulging the research that showed Wall Street deliberately built up what became the USSR, predating, of course, you've got the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 1910s. And then Sutton exposing the fact that Prescott Bush, who fathered and grandfathered two now former U.S. presidents, had knowingly built up the Nazi regime in World War II. Yes, financing Adolf Hitler through Union Bank, again, Wall Street. So, America, folks, has long been manipulated by financial bankers that do not have America in her best interest. And it is becoming apparent that these European central banking planners that control the United Nations want nothing more than to bring America to her knees. And George Soros, likely a shareholder in the U.S. Federal Reserve, I'd assume, certainly interests in the Swiss global economy out of Basel, funding BLM and Antifa. Why? To bring turmoil and chaos to a city and neighborhood near you. If you weaken a great country from within, and you do it by collapsing its economy, which at a near, $30 trillion debt, this government, federal government, is nearing a collapse financially, in my view, then you're causing at the same time strife and turmoil in your cities, weakening the fabric of how Americans live their life. You insert a biological weapon by means of a coronavirus, a la COVID-19, yes, like Zika. If you look at the research that I began doing in 2016, that culminated to my first show in 2017 of January, you'll find that I began doing so because of the Zika virus, which is another coronavirus. In fact, I was just sent something from a Canadian post. I mean, Canada is in a communist lockdown. And evidently, in 2016, the Canadian government was putting on scripted grenade and tear gas type scenarios due to a COVID-19 response pandemic. Okay, so does this all sound foreign to you? I mean, are you listening to this and thinking, oh yeah, this is all theoretical? Theoretical, right? Okay. Theoretical as the United States burns, as Australia burns, as you lose any type of civil right that you may be looking for and hoping for, all crashing and burning, folks, all crashing and burning. So, I've just received confirmation from Joachim Hagopian. And who is Joachim? So here's the issue here. Just a warning that I may have to go offline here to bring Joachim in, and therefore I have had some issue with the software I use in regards to integrating it into Skype, so like a live Skype. And Joachim is scheduled to Skype here. I'll give it a shot with him, but just prepare that this will likely have to move to a post-live, like podcast type platform, should you desire listening to Joachim Hagopian. But this is Joachim's background, and it will be either you're listening to it live here or you listen to it on podcast. Joachim Hagopian is a West Point graduate, former Army officer, and author of Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down, exposing a faulty U.S. military leadership system based on ticket punching up the seniority ladder, invariably weeding out the best and brightest, leaving mediocrity and other followers rising to the top as political bureaucrat generals. Sound a little bit like this guy Miley? Sounds a lot like this guy Miley, and in fact, sounds somewhat like this Rachel Levine, right? Now being sworn in as a 4-star admiral. Yes, he's the lovely transgendered healthcare official appointed by Joseph Biden. And look, folks, are there Jesuit ties here? You bet there's Jesuit ties here. Is the Vatican having some influence here on the downfall of the United States? You betcha. And follow those strings. And you can start with Anthony Sutton and the Federal Reserve Conspiracy, which is a book he wrote in the 70s. Okay. After the military, Joachim earned a master's degree in clinical psychology and worked as a licensed therapist in the mental health field with abused youth and adolescents for more than a quarter century. In Los Angeles, he battled the largest county child protective services in the nation within America's thoroughly broken and corrupt child welfare system. The experience in both the military and child welfare system prepared him well as a researcher and independent journalist, and that's what the world's coming to, right? The citizen journalist. I mean, that's basically kind of the work that I do. I have no training in journalism. My degree's in sociology. And I never expect to be doing a weekly talk show or podcast. This is the world. This is the state of the world we're in. Yeah, I wasn't born into wealth, so likely, like yourself, perhaps, I'm assuming, I've got to work my butt off during my days. And I do this work because it needs to be done. Because you can't turn on TV and turn on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC and get a straight picture, folks. This is what the world is coming to because of the internet or whatever it may be. Global, the citizen journalist. Anyway, so here's this guy walking, and I certainly didn't go to West Point, but here's this guy walking, becoming an independent journalist. So, exposing the evils of Big Pharma and how the Rockefeller, oh, there's that word again. There's that name, isn't it, Rockefeller? How the Rockefeller-controlled medical and psychiatric system inflict more harm than good. Case in point, the current diabolically lethal pandemic hoax and now overt genocide. This is going to be a conversation and discussion you're going to want to listen to. And unfortunately, I may not be able to make it live. Okay, it's just because of the system I have, the software I have. So I may have to record with Joachim and then post it to anchor.fm, where you can find all of my past research. As an independent journalist, the last 8 years, Joachim has written hundreds of articles for many news sites, particularly Global Research and LouRockwell.com. Good for him. As a published author of 5-book volume series entitled Pedophilia and Empire, Satan, Sodomy, and the Deep State. Wow, sound a little bit like what's happening in Rome? Yeah, it sounds a lot like what's happening in Rome. Joachim's books and chapters are Amazon bestsellers in child advocacy and human rights categories. A through Z source book series fully documents and exposes the global pedophilia scourge and remains available for free at Joachim's blog site, empireexposed.blogsite.com and pedoempire.org. I mean, come on. I never thought I'd be talking about pedophilia, but yeah, it's real. This is real. Yeah, it's disgusting. Hey, you know what? If we sit back and let these people get away with this garbage, we're going to continue to watch our country just burn in flames. So here's a West Point graduate talking about the corruption in the military, talking about the corruption in child welfare system in Los Angeles, and I become an independent journalist because of the necessity. So if you yourself can do one thing today, that would be turn somebody on to the work that I'm doing and turn them on to the literature that I've compiled that's available for free, simply just like Joachim, like Anthony Sutton, okay, a former Hoover Fellow at Stanford, a bright guy, right, a smart guy. So we're gonna bring on Joachim, see if it works with the Skype. If it doesn't work with Skype, then it doesn't work with Skype. Sorry, I apologize. I had to put it up in the podcast. But let me get to something else before we bring in Joachim. Make it work with Joachim. Hopefully it's live. Again, if it's not, now, boom, here. This is very important, okay? And this needs a whole other segment just to talk about this, just to talk about the corruption in China. Oh, ching chong. Oh, that's. I mean, geez, I can still say that without. Ni hao. It's not Japanese, but I'm being facetious. I'm being facetious. That is Chinese. All right, so we're going to sign in. Briefly, I'm going to mention something, read something for you. I'm going to sign in here and see if we can bring on Joachim and bring him live. In the event you can get this from the horse's mouth, per se, without waiting for the podcast. And unfortunately, I just may have to wait for the podcast to happen. But this is what I want to get to. Okay. Igor Panarian, 1998, ex-KGB. He's an analyst turned political scientist, KGB analyst. Political scientist made a prediction that was published in the Wall Street Journal, which included a map that I'm going to post to my Instagram. Based on classified data he had accessed to, specifically called for the disintegration of the U.S. into 6 parts by the year 2010. So they're a little late on that. But it could be happening. Is there an exterior force, ladies and gentlemen? Is there an exterior force that is attempting and trying to bring America down? Make no mistake about it. Make absolutely no mistake about it. And that is why there's such a seesaw on both political aisles. We shouldn't have this as Americans. We shouldn't have to be dealing with this, should we? You work hard enough in your day to pay your taxes, be a good citizen. You shouldn't have to deal with this bickering and these divides on the political aisle. What was beautiful about JFK? Well, JFK understood that the international European bankers were controlling his country, and so he inserted silver certificates into currency. That meant you could walk into a bank with one of those certificates and walk out of the bank with a piece of silver. Okay, that's intrinsic value. That's not fiat. There's nothing fiat. There's nothing fake about that. 3 months later, he's driving down Dallas in his motorcade, and his head gets blown off. Coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. Lee Harvey Oswald? Baloney. There's no doubt. I mean, come on, Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah, right. I mean, that's the biggest. He's the biggest. He's the what do you call him? He's the biggest. I can't think of a pawn. He's a pawn, or for use of the other term I was going to use. A pawn. He's a pawn. Lee Harvey Oswald. Come on, give me a break. JFK was an extremely sophisticated attack on a sitting president, and they wanted to mock him, make a mockery out of him, and they did. But my point here was that both sides of the political aisle loved this guy, and he was a Democrat. Okay, both Americans loved this guy, and that's kind of what this guy Trump was getting, right? People love Trump because Trump loved his country. And Joe Biden, he's just a deep state puppet. He's just catering to all the deep state ridiculous things that the deep state wants. They want to bring America down. They want an onset of digital currency and bring this country to its knees. And they're getting very close. They're getting very close. Here's the problem: is that Americans practice their Second Amendment right, and that's what's stopping them from everything I can see. Even though technology is very incredibly sophisticated, when it comes down to it, the Spartans, there were only 300 of them, but they did take on thousands of Persians. Yeah, I don't know history that well, but I know it enough. And I know that a tyrant, tyranny, regardless of how large it is, can be dismantled and will be dismantled. So, Joachim Hagopian here. Let's tie him in, and hopefully this works here. Thank you for joining Discussions of Truth. IanTrottier.com. TROTTIER.com. IN. Joachim. Okay. Yeah, Joachim, can you hear me? All right. This was look, I'm simply gonna have to dial Joachim back in, and like I said, you can catch us on podcasts. It's the software I've got. I apologize, folks. It's the software I've got, and I've simply got to thread him back in on a podcast and record it, and then I'll post it to Anchor.fm. So, ladies and gentlemen, Joachim Hagopian, and look for that conversation here in about an hour's time. I'm gonna have to sign out right now. So, Ian Trottier for Discussion of Truth, IanTrottier.com. Pass this on, and until next week, folks, be awesome. Look, the way I've got around this was simply dialing using phone numbers, but again, if it's Skype, I unfortunately have run into some issues with the software, and I've got to figure that out.